See some folks on locals. Hey guys, good to see you. Can you hear me and everything? How's everybody doing today? I reckon we'll get some folks coming in on YouTube and Rumble. Right now, I only see folks on locals. My locals crowd. Know what this is? Anybody know what that is? Hey, G-Huns. G-Huns out on the beach fishing. I saw at least 3 fishing poles on your beach there. Are you catching anything? Today's a good day for fishing. See what G-Huns has to say there on locals. He's got at least 3 or 4 fishing poles set up. He's not playing around. That's the way to maximize your odds, right? Of catching something. I've never fished that way. It's always been just one pole, just me and one pole and one fish. I have a fish story to tell you. I've mentioned in the past about how every day after school, my school bus ride was about an hour and a half long. And when I would get home from school on that 1 hour and a half ride on the school bus, from town all the way out into the wilderness where I lived, I'd be daydreaming about getting down to Nola's Pond. That's where I fished. It was a pond out in the woods we called Nola's Pond. And man, I would just explode off the school bus, race to get my fishing pole, and then run down Nola's Pond. And that's where I spent from the time I got off school until night. That's where I spent my time. And there was a fish. You see this in movies sometimes. Like a guy has this arch nemesis that is a fish, and he's just dead set on catching that fish, and it's like impossible to catch, and the fish is smarter than him and everything. I had one of those fishes. We called it the carp, and it was I think somebody had set loose like a pet goldfish in this pond. And goldfish, little pet goldfish, are just carp. And they'll grow only as large as their environment allows. But if they're in a big pond or a big lake, they'll just keep growing and growing and growing. You know, it's not like being in a little fish tank. When they're in their little fish tank, they don't grow much bigger than like that. But I think somebody had set loose this pet goldfish in this pond. And it had grown, man, I'm telling you what, it was a monster. It was like Moby Dick, but we called it the old carp. And I was determined to catch that fish. And for years and years and years, we'd see that thing teasing us from the bank. Never did catch it. Never did. At one point, my cousin Jay, I think it was standing on the dock. There it is. There's the old carp. You could see it because it was gold. It was bright orange. So when it would come up, it was the only fish like that in the whole pond. And when it would come up, you'd see it. Bright and orange underneath the surface of the water there. He says, there it is, I'm going to get it. And he just jumped off the dock like trying to bear hug that fish. And we tried everything, catch it. Never did catch it. G. Huns mentions Catfish Hunter from Grumpy Old Men. It was like that. It was exactly that. And, I got that story. Obviously, you've seen it in movies. I'm sure I'm not the only one. It must be pretty common for fishermen to have one smart arch nemesis fish that you're just determined to catch, but just could never seem to do it. Always outwit you. Always outwitted us. The old carp. Anyway, G. Hunt's out there on the coast. He says he's got nothing yet, but he's got 6 poles out into the water. And, I was noticing in that picture, this is G. Hunt's on our locals group. For those of you on YouTube and Rumble wondering who I'm talking to. G-Huns, I noticed that where you're at, it looks like it's pretty overcast. Pretty gray, overcast day. It ain't like that here where I'm at. It's as blue as can be outside. Beautiful fall day. And the temperatures have come down. I mean, it's just exquisite. Exquisite this time of year. I can't wait to get out into the woods here very soon. How you folks on YouTube and Rumble doing? I got some things to talk about. So, in addition to whatever you want to talk about. So you guys, you chat at me. We'll talk about that stuff too. The latest video I did for Practical Woodsman, I highlighted, excuse me, got a burp generating in here somewhere. Last video I did, I showed off this really nice modern camp sink. And I had taken it camping, taken it to a campsite, set this thing up, and it's, oh man, it's fancy. Push a button, it's almost like RoboCop. Zzz, you know how RoboCop's gun comes out the side of his hip? Well, this sink, you just press a button and zzz, this thing comes up like RoboCop, and then you press another button and it starts spitting water, and it's all self-contained and everything. It's beautiful. And I've been feeling guilty about that video. Hey Ron, they're on YouTube. Good to see you, buddy. I've been feeling guilty about that video because here I am, I'm the Practical Woodsman, and you know, a lot of the things I feature are like DIY and budget stuff, which I get a thrill out of coming up with budget things, you know, spending like 20 bucks and having something just as effective as some other thing. And here I did this whole video on this really high-tech modern sink. It's really nice, but the sink costs, it's running about $250, and I don't think it's worth that. Now I will tell you, I tried to do a review for this thing for Amazon. They wouldn't accept my review because that's the thing I complained about. I don't think it's worth that much. So I don't think they appreciated my honesty there. So I'm going to have to redo that. But anyway, $250 for what amounts to like an aluminum frame and a little pump, a little rechargeable pump. You know, you can get those rechargeable pumps for, it shouldn't cost you more than $20, $30. And the fact that they're selling this thing for $250, it's over $200, almost $300 without a markdown. It's just ridiculous, and I wouldn't buy that. And, you know, I don't want to give you the idea that I would buy that or that I'm suggesting you buy that. So my conscience has been bothering me about that video. And I thought I'd make it up to everybody by coming up with a DIY type thing that does exactly the same thing, that is just as convenient, not any more heavy, and in fact lighter, that offers all the same conveniences and everything. And that's what I'm currently working on. So when you see the thumbnail to this live stream, me holding up the drill and the bucket, that's a preview of this video I'm working on for this coming week, which is a DIY thing. I think the cost that I have in it so far is $25 maybe. So I mean, $25 ain't nothing, but it ain't $250. And it's going to be so sweet. I've got the materials and everything just sitting over here. I can't wait to get it together and show that off. So, you know, G Huns brought up that he thought it was kind of weird that I did that sink video, because so much of the stuff I focus on is if you can't carry it distance, then it's not worth having. Well, you know, there is a place for base camps. And in fact, a lot of my friends are getting older, and I ain't getting no younger either. And so I've been, the idea of base camps has been attracting my attention here lately. But I'd still like a thing where, you know, you get in like a day's journey before you set up a base camp. So those are the sorts of things I typically focus on. But, you know, everything outdoors, like camping is good for social. You get a lot of people who wouldn't normally get out into the woods, and they'll do camping. So it has its place, and you get to sit around a fire, and you get a lot of the same elements of true wilderness type stuff. It's not exactly the same, but it's not it's not worthless, is what I'm saying. There's a place for it. So anyway, just look out for that video this week. I'm going to create a DIY sink. It just uses gravity for the water flow, and it's got a basin and a catcher and everything, like a gray water tank. It's going to be cool. Another thing I wanted to show off today is I drive a Wrangler, a Jeep Wrangler, and it's a two-door Wrangler. I call it the Bacon. If you ever hear me talking about the old Bacon, it's my Jeep. And the thing about Wranglers, it's been a pleasure having this thing. I've been driving it now for 14 years. 14 years, is that right? Yeah, I've been driving the same truck for 14 years. But these two-door Wranglers are renowned for not having any space. So space is a premium in a Jeep. I mean, unless you take out the back seats, and I don't ever want to do that. I do it sometimes, but it's just a hassle, and I don't like driving around like that standard. I like to keep the back seats in there. But anyway, I want to show off what sorts of like survival preparedness type things I keep in my Jeep Wrangler. I know we've got a guy on our locals group. He drives a Wrangler. He drives a Wrangler and he drives a Tacoma. But he's got some pretty good setups in his Wrangler. Probably a better setup than I've got. He's got like, it actually built into like the tailgate, not the tailgate, but the tail door. He's got certain things built into it and stuff like that. I don't have that. But I'll show you what I do have and what I keep in the back of my Wrangler at all times. And I've learned that this is just, for my lifestyle, it's perfect convenience for owning a Wrangler. And just, these things really come in handy. They're not like just sitting there and never get used. These things are things that I actually end up using all the time, that I pull out of the back of my Wrangler and put to use. The first thing is, and I just used this past Tuesday. So there's a building project going on here, and I was asked to help out with security. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I got assigned to do security with a buddy of mine from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. We actually ended up staying there till about 4 a.m. in the morning. And I didn't get home till like 5 a.m. in the morning. But because I keep these things in the back of my Jeep, I was kind of set for staying comfortable that night on the third shift. Ron says he didn't really care for the sink. I do like it when you explore both sides of the coin of camping. Good. Well, you're going to like this new sink setup. You can think of it as like a sink setup or a wash station, but it's all DIY. And it's all stuff you probably got laying around the house, or if you don't have, you can run to Walmart and it don't cost nothing. I think the average cost of the materials that I got for this thing I'm building was like $3. Yeah, the average cost of each material was like $3 or something like that. Between 3 and 5. Okay, so number one thing I was keeping in the back of my Jeep. I keep 3 of these backpacker chairs. 3 of these backpacker chairs. And they come in handy all the time. Where you find yourself in a situation where you say, boy, it'd be nice if I had something to sit down on, something comfortable to sit down on. You can pull out these backpacker chairs. They don't take up no space. And they put together real easy. They're not like camp chairs that are enormous and heavy. These are light and compact. But when you sit down into them, they kind of cradle you. And they're very comfortable. So I keep 3 of these. One for myself and a couple spare for anybody who might be with me. Because, last thing you want to do is have one chair and a couple other guys or a couple other people with you, and then you feel guilty sitting all comfortable while they're standing. So I carry a couple extra. A fleece. I always carry a fleece in my jacket or in my truck. I carry a wool blanket. and not just any wool blanket. I carry a very dense 5-pound wool blanket. So this thing can take a lot of abuse. Whereas if you got a wool blanket that's spongier, the more spongy the blanket, the less abuse it can take. So I like a really dense wool blanket, and I keep that in the back of my truck or Jeep. Spare boots. So every once in a while, I'll get caught wearing like dress shoes. So if I'm going to church or something like that, just this past winter, coming out of church, and this blizzard had hit, and I had about a 40-minute drive in this blizzard, and all I was wearing was like these really thin dress shoes. Fortunately, I had a pair of boots in the back of my truck. So I was coming down this road, and this guy had wiped out, and he'd gone off the road into a field, and he was stranded in there. So I pulled off to the side of the road. Everything was real hairy and dangerous and everything like that. I pulled off the side of the road, changed it into my boots, and I went trotting across the field to his car, which was sunk in this field, to check if he was all right. He was fine. I offered him a ride or offered to call somebody. He said, no, I got somebody coming. So I said, okay, good. Well, so having a pair of boots always is a good thing. And you don't want to get caught trudging through the woods or trudging through, ankle deep snow or even knee deep snow wearing something like tennis shoes or wearing dress shoes. Those dress shoes have no traction at all, most of them. So I always keep a spare pair of boots in my Jeep. I can change into them if I run off the road or if I break down or anything like this. I don't have to worry about what I have on my feet. I know that I've always got the spare boots in my truck. So that's another thing I always keep. Now you see this thing here. This is what I use to keep everything organized in the back of the truck. So this fits in the back of a Jeep Wrangler behind the seats, and the door will close. It fits in that space just fine. You see what it is? It's just a plastic bin that I got from Walmart years ago. And I'll show you what I got in here. Oh, I should say, so when I was preparing for this live stream, I threw a couple of things in here that don't normally ride in this. So my first aid kit is one of those things. I keep the first aid kit up front with me, and I keep it in the center console so that it's easily accessible. I don't have to climb into the back and get it. But the first aid kit has just common sense stuff. Bandages, tape, scissors, different salves, like itch salve. I've got a antibiotic salve. I think I got 2 of those. Oh, I've even got toothache pain relief. I'll tell you what, if you've ever gotten like a proper toothache out in the middle of nowhere, it is debilitating, man. I'll tell you what is debilitating. And if you don't have any kind of medicine or anything to get you to help you along until you can get out of the woods and get to a dentist, oh man, it is debilitating. So something to think about. The toothache pain relief stuff, it just completely kills. It just numbs the pain. Got some cotton in here, bandages, band-aids, those sorts of things. All right, first aid kit. Something to hold water, and this happens to have a nesting cup. Again, if you break down, you want to be able to have something that you can transport water in. So I keep that in my truck at all times. Here's another one of those things that does not usually ride in here. Is this knife here? I'll use like a single tang knife, not a folding knife. This is an exception. I don't know if you can see there. It's got a window breaker on it, and so this rides up front with me. It rides also in the center console. That's because all the modern vehicles, if you run off the road and you go into a lake or something, you need something. It'll kill the electronics. You won't be able to put your window down. And you really don't want to put down the front windows anyway. You want to be able to knock out like a back window. But anyway, this rides in the front with me. I have a soft top on my Jeep, so it's not really a big issue. But you can use that window breaker right there. It's just a very sharp but blunt little thing. And that's for breaking the glass. Also, this is a seat belt. You see this thing right here? That's a seat belt cutter. So you just hook that onto your seat belt and it cuts your seat belt. So if you're in an accident and you're trapped in a car, those two things are really handy. And then, of course, the knife can be used for anything. Lots of good things. So that rides in the center console with me. It doesn't ride in this usually. Like I said, I threw a couple of things in there because I just wanted it all together when I started doing this live stream. These two things also do not ride in this usually because this rides in the back. But I carry a headlamp in there and it's rechargeable. And I carry a rechargeable flashlight. The good thing about these rechargeables is that you can recharge them. I use the same USB-C cord and charger and everything that I use for my phone. So just pop that open and I can just charge that right off the cigarette lighter, just like I do my phone. I like these flashlights. They sent these to me about a year ago, but I want to show you something to you. You see it's got a battery readout display there. I really like that. I won't hardly buy a flashlight anymore unless it's got that, because without it you're just always guessing how much charge you've got left on your flashlight. And you know, if you get started late on like a long excursion in the backcountry, you get started in the dark and you're walking along with rechargeables and they're only rechargeables, the whole time you're walking through the dark, you don't know how much charge you've got left on your light. So I really like, and I almost demand it nowadays, that they put that readout there, so I know exactly what I'm working with. Can I walk along with the high beams for a little bit, or do I need to lower them down to the minimums? Before I go on, let me mention to you folks there on locals, I think we still got a 30-minute limit there on locals. So if we run out of time on locals, hop over onto YouTube or Rumble to finish out this live stream, all right? All right, so rechargeable headlamp, rechargeable flashlight. I carry a rain jacket. Jackets and fleeces and sweaters and that sort of thing kind of fall into the same category as the chairs. So those backpacking chairs. I don't just take one, I take three, because inevitably somebody else will be with me. And I can't deal with the guilt of being the only person who's comfortable while other people are standing. So I always take three of those backpacker chairs. I always take at least three jackets or fleeces. So one of them is a rain jacket. It's like a rain windbreaker outer shell. Carry a hoodie. Comfort things. Bandana. And I really love these bandanas. These are really big big bandanas. So, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to fight a bull, you can just get out. You can do the thing with the bull. I'm kidding. But these come in handy for a lot of other things. Not necessarily bullfighting, but they come in handy for a lot of other things. You can, tie this onto something that's hanging out the back of your vehicle. Like if you end up buying something that is hanging out the back, you can tie this as a warning flag onto whatever you've got hanging out the back of your vehicle. You can use it to, it's endless number of things you can use these bandanas for. So I always keep one in my little emergency kit there. 3 ball caps. Why do you think I carry 3 ball caps? Well, a ball cap, I think, is a greatly overlooked survival preparedness item. It immediately makes you presentable. So no matter how hard you've been roughing it, no matter how long you've been away from civilization or a shower or anything like that, a ball cap instantly makes you presentable. Otherwise, you look like a wild man or a wild woman. So it's so easily fixable just by putting on a ball cap. And then you can kind of slip into civilization without drawing all sorts of attention to yourself. So that's one reason. The other reason is it's a Jeep. So a lot of times when you take the top off a Jeep, if you've got other people with you, especially if they've got long hair, they can't see the hair's whipping all about them, and it's just a terrible experience for them. So if I keep a ball cap in the Jeep, then I can loan them out to people if I've got the top off the Jeep. Always carry a hatchet / striking tool. So this is an Italian hatchet that they sent me some time ago, and I use it both as a blunt, like hammer, and also as a cutting instrument. So that's always in my Wrangler. Pair of gloves. 2 toboggans. Not 1 toboggan, 2 toboggan. Because I don't want to feel guilty that somebody else is freezing to death and have to give them my toboggan. So I like to have a spare toboggan to give to somebody else, whoever might be with me. So 2 toboggans, keep my head warm. And those go a long way, Those go a long, long way. They say that, I'm sure you've heard like 80% of your body's heat escapes out your head. And then I've read other studies that say that, no, that's not true. That's a myth. So I don't know what to believe. You go along for a while and they tell you that whole milk is good for you. And then for 5 years they tell you, no, it's terrible for you. And then they reverse that and say, no, it's real good for you. Same thing with butter. No, butter's terrible for you. You should use vegetable oil. Fake butter. So people stop buying real butter, and then they start buying fake butter, and then they go, no, that's killing everybody. You got to go back to real butter. It's just all sorts of things like that. So I don't know what to believe if 80% of your body's heat really does escape out of your head or not. But I do know it makes a difference to have a toboggan on your head. It really does make a difference. And even if you don't have that heavy of a jacket, just by putting something on your head like a toboggan, it can completely change your comfort level a lot. One of the most important tools, I think it's more important than a belt knife, to be honest with you, are these little saws here, little foldable saws. And I actually like these better than I like buck saws. I think they cut better, they weigh less, they're just so much more convenient. So I always keep one of those in the bin. You know, I rail against these fake, forts that people build. But if you really did, if you found yourself in a situation for real where there's no other options and you needed some kind of cover and you were going to build yourself a lean-to, this would be a million times better for that than this. This really is just best as like a striking tool. But if you want to build a shelter or something, you're going to want this. And also for efficiency with your fires, with a campfire, this is what you want, not this. You're not going to be out there hacking down trees, but you will be cutting firewood. And for cutting firewood, you want this. This is so much more important than this, and even a belt knife, in my opinion. I try to keep these everywhere. I have 5 or 6 of them. I keep them in my bug out bags. I take them in the woods when I go on these long excursions. Keep them in my truck. I keep them everywhere because they just come in handy all the time. This is a 10 by 10 tarp. And I always keep that in my truck. And I keep it with tent stakes. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like I have about 9 or 10 tent stakes. And I keep it with this 10 by 10 tarp. It come in handy for a lot of things as an emergency item in the back of a truck. It can serve as a shelter out of the sun. I mean, this sort of thing is convenient no matter what environment you're in. If you're in the desert and you need to get out of the sun, you could pitch this tarp and provide yourself some shade. If you want to get yourself out of the weather, you break down in a blizzard or something on some back roads, you could set up a really nice shelter with this tarp. It offers all sorts of possibilities. So I keep a 10 by 10 tarp. I keep about 10 tent stakes to complement the tarp. And I also keep in here cordage. Plenty of cordage to complement, again, not just the tarp and the tent stakes, but there's a lot of uses that this paracord can just come in handy. I've used these, found myself with my dog, and I've had to get out of the vehicle with my dog, and I don't have his leash, because when we go somewhere, like if I'm just going to go somewhere, I'll just walk out, open the door, and he just hops in, and we go. So it's not unusual for me to forget his leash, because from the back door to the car door, I don't need a leash. And when he goes with me, I don't usually intend to get out of the vehicle, but sometimes I've had to. So because I've had cordage in my truck, I've been able to just cut off a length of that and make a kind of a makeshift leash for him. I've also used my belt, the belt that I wear on my waist. I've used that as like a makeshift leash in the past. So you always want to carry cordage. I recommend keeping that. I mean, if you don't like anything else that I've showed off here, that I keep in an emergency kit in my Jeep Wrangler, a lot of the stuff you might not need. You might not need the axe or the hatchet. But if you were going to carry one thing, I'd say carry a tarp, cordage, and the stakes. That will come in handy in a lot of emergency situations. All right, let's see what else I got in here. Oh, you're going to like this. Can you guess what that is? Anybody on YouTube there? Can you guess what this is? I mean, I know it's a pouch. What do you think I've got in the pouch? Anybody on Locals? Rumble? See if you can. Let's see if anybody can guess what's in here. Rides in the truck. Rides in the back of the truck in the emergency kit. All right, I'm gonna show it off. I'll give you a second, just in case somebody's typing. There's another one of those things that I carry everywhere. Carry it in my daily backpack. Binoculars, Glenn says. Good guess. Good guess. It's not binoculars. Ron's got it. Ron's got it. Ron on YouTube. It says fire kit. Here you go. Look at the guts of that. So that's my fire kit. Got fat wood. Got an enormous ferrocerium rod. Got plenty of cotton. Cotton's just my tinder. And I've got matches. Love matches. I actually have been using the matches a lot more than anything else lately. And then I just got plenty of this fat wood that I've cut down to the size I want. And this, a fire kit comes in handy all over the place. G. Hans, Glenn. I always forget what your real name is. I'm so used to calling you G. Hans. Yep, G. Hans got it. So that's another one of those things where you just want to keep everywhere. You're never going to be sorry that you have a fire kit. I keep it in. So I have a bug out bag that I keep hanging on the wall. I can just grab it and go. Then I have like a daily backpack. I don't carry as many things in just my daily backpack as I carry in like a bug out bag. I want to be able to carry it like down the street and not look like I'm homeless. But I do want to keep certain things everywhere, no matter where I'm at. And a fire kit is one of those things I just keep everywhere. So any kit that I'm putting together, no matter what it's for, I always make sure I've got definitely a way of starting fire anywhere. All right, I think we're down to the last thing of this survival bin that I keep in the back of my Jeep Wrangler. And it's a Grail type water purification setup. You've heard me talk a lot in the past about how I rarely ever filter water. Under normal circumstances, that's true. So if I'm on these long excursions in the woods, rarely do I ever have to use a water filter. I just find clean water. I know, everybody out there is, oh, what about Giardia? What about this? What about that? What do you get implanted with, like a xenomorph, a xenomorph parasite or something like that? When you grow up in the woods, as I did, as a lot of you I'm sure did, you learn to identify clean water. And you learn to identify where there might be areas of contamination, and then you avoid that. That's what I do. But I have found myself in situations like I have a friend that lives about 30 minutes from me. And to get to his house, I have to go on these back roads. So I take these back roads and I'm out in the middle of nowhere and there ain't no houses out there or nothing. And on a couple of occasions, I've forgotten to bring something to drink with me. And there are these so there's this thing called Blackie's Lake. And I know that's not PC, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm in Appalachia, and in that area, there are a bunch of black settlers that settled in that area. People of color. And they're I'll have to talk to you guys about this sometime. They're like one of the very first black communities around here, and they all settled around nearby that lake. So around here, everybody knows it as Blackie's Lake. They call it that too. Everybody calls it Blackie's Lake. And again, I know it's not PC. I know there's people who are going to watch this and they're just going to want to kick me off a cliff for even saying that. But that's what it's called. I think it actually has an official other name, but that's nobody knows it by that. And there's this waterfall back there that I knowed about when I was a kid, and I spent a lot of time back in that area, back by Blackie's Lake, up at this waterfall. So I was driving to my friend's house, who's about 30 minutes away, and I got to take all these back roads. I mean, there's nobody out there until you get to about Blackie's Lake, and then there's a couple houses around there. Those are the original people of color who settled there. Their families still live out there. There's this phenomenon in this area of people who are as white as me, but they're black. What I mean is, culturally, they are black, and they consider themselves African Americans. They consider themselves black, and they are accepted as black, and they are as white as me. And it's even been featured in certain documentaries and stuff. These folks that live out here. So it's different than like if you're in Chicago or New York, right? Some of the things that I'm saying, you might have a hard time listening to it and not being offended. It's different here, and because the culture here is different, the history is different, and so it's a fascinating story to talk about. I need to do like a whole Practical Woodsman episode on those folks that live around here, because they're very interested. I mean, they're an integral part of our community. They're a part of our history, a part of our community. We love them. They're not treated poorly. And I'm just digging myself a hole, ain't I? Anyway, so I was out on that area, and I said, I want to show my daughter this old waterfall that we used to climb up into the woods and hang out out there. There was also some sand dunes out there. Used to be the big area of sand dunes. So anyway, I took her out there, and she started getting thirsty. And I hadn't brought any water or anything. And the only thing is there, Blackie's Lake and some mud puddles and that sort of thing. So because I always carry something like this in my truck, I was able just to scoop up some water and immediately have drinking water. So in the woods, like when you're on this long excursion, it's a whole different beast. You're like out in the middle of nowhere, and you're coming across water all the time and everything like that. It's a lot different than when you're just driving from some place to another place and you start getting really parched. You don't want to spend 40 minutes looking for a water source. You just want to find water and be able to drink it. So that's where these come in real handy. And I just keep them. I keep a couple of different places, and I'll show you the way these work. If you've never used a Grail before, this is not technically a Grail. It's like a cheap knockoff of a Grail, but it works the same way. So you scoop water into this. This is the bottom portion. And that's all it is. There's just a big cup. And then this is your filter right here. And that'll filter, I think, 99.9% of everything. Virus, bacteria, germs, everything. Everything microscopic. And so the water's in here. You put this in, and you start pushing down on that. And that forces the water up through that filter into this second reservoir. And that water there then is perfectly clean to drink. And so for convenience, and you're not worried about bulk and weight, because these things are bulky and weight and not light, wonderful thing to keep in your vehicle. All right. So there you go. Yeah, I got to find some links to like documentaries to the folks I'm talking about here. They're called the White Blacks of Appalachia, I think is what people know them by. The White Blacks of Appalachia. And they're descendants of the folks that I'm telling you about. And when you when you see these folks, it's a mix of white and, I mean, dark-skinned people and white-skinned people, and they're all related. They're all still same family, and it's this cultural, racial anomaly that exists in these parts here. Very interesting. I'll see if I can find some links to that and share that with you. A lot of just wonderful cultural anomalies and stuff here in the Appalachian areas. G Huns, Glenn, there he lives in Appalachia, but he lives in the Allegheny area of the Appalachians. But it's all culturally, it's all the same. And even you go down further south of me, you get into the Carolinas. I think the Carolinas are considered southern Appalachia. I'm in central Appalachia. And Glenn, G Huns, I think you're in what they call northern Appalachia or northeastern Appalachia. But we all share the same cultural background. So, for those of you who are wondering about Appalachia, I know when I was in New England, everybody thinks Appalachia is just a mountain area. It's not a geographic area as much as it is a cultural region. So the it does follow the basic path of the Appalachian mountain range, but it bleeds off into the sides, and it doesn't go as far north as a lot of people think it does. And I'll tell you how I know that, because I've been up there. And I don't have anything in common with those folks. It starts to fade out. You get very much further northeast of where Glenn's at, or G Huns. It starts to fade out up there. Yeah, G Huns, that's the Blue Mountains by him. Those beautiful blue mountains. There's a really beautiful song by Balsam Range, a bluegrass song. I think it's by Balsam Range. It's either by Balsam Range or it's by their lead singer. His name's Buddy Melton. And I met Buddy last year. Yeah, once you get up into the New York area, that a lot of people who don't know consider that part of Appalachia. I know that the mountains run up through there, but culturally that ends way before New York. That ends somewhere. The further east you get in Pennsylvania, that starts culturally, Appalachia starts to fade out. I agree with you, G Huns. The cultural zone ends somewhere up there. It doesn't go as far northeast as people think it does. Anyway, so Balsam Range has this song called Blue Mountain. Beautiful song. And the whole point of the song is that he is separated from somebody he loves. Like their relationship is falling apart. And he's singing back. He's like thinking back to her and the love that they had and everything. And he's singing about how there's a blue mountain separating them now. He's talking about the blue mountain that Glenn lives at the base of. So he's saying like he's in Philadelphia, or she's in Philadelphia, or she's somewhere like in Virginia or something, and he's out west. And so they got the blue mountain separating them. It's a beautifully poetic song. Anyway, Wonderful having you guys here for the live stream. I hope it's been enjoyable, as enjoyable for you as it has been for me. G Huns, you catch anything yet? You've had about an hour now. 6 polls, about an hour. Have you caught anything? Any bites? Have you had to re-bait your lines or anything like that? A seagull. Well, that counts. Um, Down there at Nola's Pond that I was talking about earlier. Honest to goodness, it'd start getting dark. The sun would set, and it would be dark down there at the pond, and and the bats would come out, and we would start messing with those bats. We'd start fishing for bats. So you cast your line real high in the air, and those bats sonar would pick up your lure or your hook or whatever, and they would chase that all the way down to the surface of the water. And there were a few times I was convinced the bat was going to grab my line, was actually going to bite my line. And I would get scared and I'd pull it back because I always thought, well, it's a great idea, but what if you actually catch one? How are you going to get it off your hook? What a mess that's going to be. Try to hold that sucker down and get that bat off your fish hook. So I'd always chicken out at the last minute, and I'd pull my line real quick if it seemed like the bat was actually going to take the line. But yeah, you can actually fish for bats. Just put a good lure on the end of a line and cast it up over the lake or the pond, but cast high. And the bat's sonar will pick that up, and they will chase that all the way down to the surface of the water, and they will grab that line if you let them. So, if you ever see Three Amigos, the movie Three Amigos, and they're traveling, and they're sitting around a campfire eating bat, because it's the only thing they can catch. More bat. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna wind down here and get to enjoying the rest of my weekend, same as you all. G Huns, good luck out there fishing, buddy, and to the rest of you, have a blessed weekend. I'll see you real soon.